Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 3 Wide IndyCar Edition. This week the Verizon IndyCar Series was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Indycar Grand Prix. Overall, a good race. There were many different parts of this race where tires mattered, there was a bunch of passing throughout the field, but in the end it came down to the one of the two dominant cars, Will Power, taking the win here for his first of the season. Now let's get into the 3 bad things that came out of the IndyCar Grand Prix. Number 1, Ed Jones' struggles continue. After 2 rounds ago with a 3rd place at the Long Beach Grand Prix, Ed Jones has just been on a downward spiral, finishing 20th at Barber and 22nd this week at the IndyCar Grand Prix. It seems like Ganassi as a whole was pretty lost this week, as Scott Dixon wasn't fast until the morning warm-up, but then there were some reports that he had fresher tires than everyone for the morning warm-up, and maybe we shouldn't believe that. Scott Dixon's team was able to figure something out to finish 2nd in the race, but Ed Jones' team did not, with a flat tire adding on to the cause of him finishing back in the 22nd position. We'll see in 2 weeks at the Indianapolis 500 if Ed Jones can match or better his 3rd place finish from last year in his rookie debut at the track. Now on to the second bad thing that came out of the Indy GP. Number 2, the Kings collapse. Jordan King was looking good all weekend, where he was 3rd in practice 1 and 2nd in practice 2. He then backed up all this practice speed, qualifying 5th, but this was all for naught as he was caught up in the dreaded turn 1 lap 1 problem where he spun out into the gravel trap after Simon Pagenaud checked up from a car in front of him. Jordan King has shown signs of potential this season, but has just had some problems pop up, whether it be brakes at St. Pete or where he got his brakes fixed and then ran into Sebastian Bourdais at Long Beach. We'll see if Ed Carpenter could figure something out when he jumps into the car at the Indianapolis 500. Now the third bad thing that came out of the Indy GP. Chevy struggles. Yes, a Chevy won the race, which is all fine and dandy, but when you only have 3 Chevys in the top 10, where half the field is made of Chevys, that means 9 cars did not finish in the top 10. Overall, this makes people wonder if Chevy is good or if Penske is just that good, considering they're always the best Chevy every single week. We see some glimpses of hope in other Chevy teams like Ed Carpenter with Jordan King this week, and through the early Indy testing, Tony Kanaan was the fastest. We'll see what they can do at the Indianapolis 500. Now on to the 3 good things that came out of the Indy GP. Number 1, Power repeats. After having bad things happen to him for the most part this season, whether it be spinning out in St. Petersburg, crashing into the wall at Phoenix, or hydroplaning and spinning out at Barber, Will Power has had a pretty dismal season so far this season. Now having a great run into Indy GP, we'll see if Power can turn this around and become one of the championship favorites after a bad start to the season. Going into the Indianapolis 500, Will Power looked to cement himself as one of the greats with all of his wins and a championship. Power has 2 top 5s and 5 top 10s overall in his career at Indy. We'll see if he can get Roger Penske's 201st IndyCar win at the 500 this year. Number 2, the Wickens and Power battle. Going into Saturday's race, many people were thinking could challenge Will Power. The man to answer the bell was Robert Wickens for the most part of this race. For the first 60 laps, it seems like Wickens was the only guy who could get Power. At the end of the first run, Wickens was starting to reel Power in when they were both on the same red tires. But then in the second stint, where Wickens was still on reds and Power went to blacks to take them early, Wickens just flew away, and maybe we thought this was the car and not the tires. But as we saw in the third stint, where Power went on the reds and Wickens was back on the blacks, Power just flew by Wickens. But then in the end, Wickens faded after the caution where they all pit and got reds and finished 3rd in this race. We'll see if Wickens can break through to get his first IndyCar win in the biggest way possible at the Indianapolis 500. And number 3, the tires. It seemed going into this race to many people that the reds were the clear better tire. But some people felt like they could make moves on the blacks and the car just felt better, like Robert Wickens said. This made the pit strategy and when you put your black tires on the most important move of the race, it seemed. As we saw from the winner, Will Power, he put his blacks on in the first pit stop, where Robert Wickens waited until his second pit stop. This showed to be that putting on the reds later was the smarter move and putting on the blacks on your first stop was the move of the race. This seemed to be really the first race of the year where there was a disparage in the tires. It seemed like if you put the black tires on, you were just a sitting duck and hope that you would stay and get into the next pit stop so you could put your reds on. For most of the season, it seemed like the reds and the blacks were close tires, but this week at the Indy GP, the blacks were clearly the worst tire you could possibly put on. Now what to look forward to in 2 weeks at the Indianapolis 500. Number 1, Sebastian's speed. Last year, after having a huge run in qualifying going through 2 laps where he looked like he was clearly going to be on the pole, Sebastian Bourdais wrecked and took him out of the Indianapolis 500, when then James Davison took over his ride and did a pretty decent job. We'll see if Bourdais' car will have the same speed and if he could get the pole for the Indy 500 or win the race to enact the biggest revenge on the 500-mile race. Number 2, Helio Castroneves goes for his 4th. Helio Castroneves currently sits with 3 Indianapolis 500-mile wins. He's looking to be the 4th man to join this group, to join the likes of AJ Foyt, Al Unser, and his spotter for the Indianapolis 500, Rick Mears. We'll see if Helio Castroneves can etch his name in history to be the 4th man to win 4 Indianapolis 500s. At number 3, Andretti Autosport goes for 3 in a row. The last time a single team won 3 Indianapolis 500s in a row was the stretch of 2001 to 2003, where Roger Penske's team did it, where Helio Castroneves won in 01 and 02, and Gilles de Ferran won in 2003. After being the part owner of Alexander Rossi's car when he won the 100th running, and last year with Takuma Sato winning the 101st running, Andretti will look to put their name in history and win 3 in a row. They'll have 6 drivers looking to bring home that 3rd trophy in a row, with Stefan Wilson, Zach Veach, the former winner Alexander Rossi, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Carlos Muniz making his return to IndyCar, and Marco Andretti. If all these cars make it through bump day and qualifying, we'll see if all 6 of these guys could be the guy to win the 3rd Indianapolis 500 in a row for the Andretti team. And that'll do it this week for 3 Wide IndyCar Edition. Leave your thoughts about the Indy GP in the comment section below and what you think will happen at the Indianapolis 500. Thanks for watching.